what should be done with Scott Peterson.
I think he's guilty. Really, really guilty.
Laci Peterson, the pretty 27-year-old mother-to-be, vanished without a trace.
In my mind, I keep hearing Laci say to me, "Mom, please find me and Connor and bring us home. I'm scared."
I really had a lot of compassion for him at first, but now it just kind of leaves you thinking, you know, is there more to it?
I heard a very strong woman's scream, and what it was, "Help me."
Nothing to do with Laci's disappearance.
Scott has not been forthcoming with information regarding my sister's disappearance, and I'm only left to question what else he may be hiding.
Discoveries of the remains of a woman and unborn baby, just miles from where Scott Peterson went fishing.
He killed them. They had everything was correct. I'm glad that he was found guilty. Justice has been served.
At the end, the verdict, no emotion, no anything.
Welcome, I'm Michael Lanos. You're watching HLN's special coverage of Scott Peterson deciding his fate. He was dubbed the most hated man in America, convicted of murdering his wife Laci and their unborn son Connor, but now he could get a new trial. We'll break all that down with our expert panel, but first, let's get you caught up on how we got here.
Looking at these photos, Scott and Laci Peterson appear to be a couple deeply in love.
He always seemed so happy and, you know, so in love, and yeah, I mean, I never saw him argue or I never saw him get upset.
And their 2002 Christmas season was going to be extra special. Laci was carrying their first child, who they had already named Connor. But then...
Laci Denise, if you're hearing Dad, we love you very much and we want you home.
Laci, nearly 8 months pregnant, vanished on Christmas Eve 2002. Scott Peterson said he was on a fishing trip in the San Francisco Bay when she disappeared.
Gentlemen, could I ask you to allow volunteers to come on through? Thank you.
Peterson appeared committed to finding his missing wife. He worked with volunteers and officials who scoured the area by air, land, and boat. During this time, a person close to Scott says she watched the news coverage in shock.
I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002. I was introduced to him. I was told he was unmarried. Scott told me he was not married. We did have a romantic relationship.
The revelation of Scott Peterson's 6-week affair with Amber Frey sparked suspicion and public scrutiny. Scott Peterson soon agreed to a television interview.
People accused me of some involvement, and I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
April 2003, Laci and her unborn baby's bodies were found on the shore of the San Francisco Bay. 4 days later, Peterson is arrested. More than a year later, his trial begins. 12 jurors and 6 alternates sat through 5.5 months of testimonies, listening to nearly 200 witnesses, including Amber Frey. Frey testified that she immediately called police after she learned about Laci going missing. Frey recounts for HLN's How It Really Happened that police collaborated with her to collect evidence against Peterson.
The detectives asked how I'd feel about tape recording our conversations.
You came and told me this elaborate lie about her missing and this tragedy, and that...
I said that I lost my wife.
Yes, you did.
I did, and yes.
How did you lose her then, before she was lost?
There are different kinds of loss, Amber.
Legal experts would go on to say that this was a turning point for the prosecution. After 7 days of tumultuous deliberations that included 2 jurors being removed and a mutiny against the foreman.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Scott Lee Peterson, guilty of the crime of murder of Laci Denise Peterson.
The judge sentenced Scott Peterson to death. This week, Peterson's fate could change. First, the California Supreme Court removed Peterson from death row after it found the trial judge inappropriately dismissed jurors who said they were against the death penalty. The High Court ordered a re-examination for the penalty phase only. And to be clear, the High Court upheld the guilty conviction. The second ruling that may change Peterson's fate came last fall. The High Court found that juror number 7 committed prejudicial misconduct by not disclosing her prior involvement with other legal proceedings, including but not limited to being the victim of a crime. Rochelle Nice was juror number 7. 4 years before the trial, she filed a protective order against her then boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, saying she feared for her unborn child's life. Because Nice did not reveal this information during pretrial questioning, the California Supreme Court ordered the lower court to re-examine Peterson's conviction.
And that is how we got here today. Let's bring in our expert panel, best in the business. There they are. HLN legal analyst, great criminal defense attorney, Joey Jackson's back with us, as is trial correspondent. She's attorney herself, Jean Casares, and trial attorney Misty Maris here as well. All right, Joey, first off, hearing today, what can we expect?
Listen, I think we can expect a lot, and obviously the fight for a new trial begins, right? Good morning to you, Mike and Misty, and of course, Jean Casares. You know, the bottom line is that we favor a fair trial in this country, and as a result of that, I know his defense team is predicating this appeal upon numerous things that they found to be in error with the trial court, but I don't think that carries the day. What I do think could carry the day is the revelation as it relates to this particular juror, juror number 7, Miss Nice, who apparently gave some false information on a questionnaire. Now, there is some information, Mike, as to whether it was false information or whether it was just due to her lack of sophistication as it relates to the process. But when you have a woman that's pregnant, and when she is pregnant or was pregnant, she was the victim of stalking by apparently her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, where she does not disclose that information, where the trial at issue relates to a woman who's pregnant and, of course, killed. That, of course, could result in a problem. When you have that same juror, Mike, who apparently is communicating with Mr. Peterson via letters while he was in jail, that raises the specter as to whether or not she indeed was a juror who should have been on there. And so I think that while there is a lot of things, right, that the attorneys are going with as it relates to the trial not being fair, as it relates to his attorney being miserable, ineffective assistance of counsel, etc., I think the woman we look at there really holds the key. Because of the fact that in the event she shouldn't have been on the jury, hey, you know what? Maybe that could have changed the outcome. Last point, and that is, would it have made any difference? Remember, when a court assesses the ability to give a new trial, when the court assesses whether a new trial should be granted in light of the lack of fairness of the trial, at the end of the day, they have to look and examine the evidence, see how compelling it is, and say, hey, even if that error wasn't made, would it have made a difference? I think the biggest impediment, Mike, to any new trial being offered is the damning evidence in this case, the fact that jurors evaluated that evidence, and after evaluating that evidence, not only said he was guilty, but sentenced him to death. Of course, we know the death came back with respect to the penalty. That's being reevaluated and redone, but a whole new trial may be granted. I think, though, it's an uphill battle based upon the compelling nature of the original case.
Yeah, we'll dive further into Rochelle Nice and other arguments for a new trial, but first, let's get back to just the matter at hand. Jean, you were there the first time. Can you believe we could have another Scott Peterson trial?
No, and I think about Laci's family and all of the victims in this case, and I think that that would be very, very hard on them. But I was out there for the sentencing verdict, for the death penalty phase, and I just remember the immensity of the media there. I mean, it was just... You know, I've been to other cases like that. Casey Anthony ranks that. Jodi Arias ranks that. But the Scott Peterson case, it was in California. It was near the coast. And it was just the whole nation was focused on this. And now, as Joey just said, it's a done deal. He is getting a new penalty trial because the death penalty was overturned. And the reason for it, it's the California Supreme Court. It's very interesting. They had to fill out questionnaires, the jurors, before the case. And this has nothing to do with Rochelle Nice, nothing. The jury questionnaires that they filled out asked them if they were for or against the death penalty. And those that said they were against the death penalty were excluded from ever being in the jury at all. The Supreme Court said, no, that's not right. Even if a juror says, I am against the death penalty, if they tell you that they can follow the law, then they have to be considered to be on the jury. So that is why it was overturned. And now the only question is, will there be an entirely new guilt phase trial and penalty phase trial? And Scott Peterson has actually waived his right to a speedy trial on the death penalty, because if there's an entirely new trial, there obviously will be a penalty phase also.
Wow, so hard to imagine. Misty, again, to that point, Scott Peterson, round 2, could it happen?
It could absolutely happen, Mike, and what we want to emphasize here is it's truly new in the sense that we could hear new witnesses, new expert testimony. This is starting from ground zero. It could be an entirely different case than we saw back in 2004. So this is really a monumental day, and what we'll see in the courtroom, maybe we'll find out today whether or not we're going to hear about that guilt phase. I just want to mention something to Jean's point. Look at this case and how incredibly important jury selection is to an outcome of the case. That is the reason why we find ourselves here today with respect to the new penalty phase of the trial, which is absolutely going to